social sciences. And so we try to apply the scientific method to the study of human phenomena and behavior, which is certainly an imperfect science because human beings can be quite unpredictable. But the first step in critical inquiry is to think scientifically. Um, in intelligence analysis, in particular, you are never going to have all of the data that you need. Therefore, there are some educated guesses that enter into analysis, and because of that, you tend to caveat your findings with more uncertainty than, say, someone who has a complete data set. So it's a little bit harder to define critical inquiry. We have a number of methods that we teach in the course on intelligence analysis that help students and future analysts hedge against some common pitfalls that come in analysis that are a function of psychology, our natural psychological cognitive makeup. To be objective is not as simple as making up your mind to be objective. Even when you are consciously trying to be objective, the human brain works in certain ways that suggest bias. Some common phenomena that we see in intelligence analysis would be satisficing. That means that you embrace the first conclusion or explanation that makes sense, when in fact, if you were to think about more hypotheses and look at how your data or your intelligence matches up with those hypotheses, you might find that some data is consistent with multiple hypotheses. Or, just like in the spirit of the scientific method, you might find that even though a couple of pieces of data strongly support what you think might be the right hypothesis, if you keep looking, you might see that there are also some things that would refute or call question to it. So you certainly don't want to reach what we would call premature closure. I noticed another one of your questions there has to do with second guessing. In the spirit of science, you always want to be second guessing previous work. You never want to
just take it
with the rare exception, you rarely want to, unless something has been proven or supported time and again by multiple studies. You want to be critical and go back and look, especially because what we study, the political world, it changes. It changes, I think, far more and far more quickly than, say, the biology of capuchin monkeys, which another scientist might be studying. So, critical inquiry in the humanities does apply the scientific method. It doesn't just try, but it recognizes that there are variables that cannot always be controlled for so easily as in the hard sciences.
Okay. So after you get that first impulse, you don't really want to second guess yourself, even though you have to keep on thinking, do you just run that up the flagpole, or is it more
Well, there are different analytical methods that force you to work through different thoughts and different possibilities. You also would be modest in how you state your claims. In the intelligence community, confidence levels are affixed to reports. Too often, when you write a paper in a class like English or something else in the humanities, you would you would state a thesis and try to do everything in your power to support your thesis. Just like if you were in a court of law, let's say you're somebody's lawyer, even if let's say you're a defense attorney, even if your client is guilty, you're going to try to de-emphasize the evidence that suggests your client is guilty and you have a bias, emphasize everything that supports your client's case. You're supposed to be apolitical, objective in doing intelligence analysis, and so those are things that you don't want to do. You want to give equal weight to competing viewpoints, and the result might be that an honest, well-written intelligence analysis does not have that same level of gusto or certainty or assertiveness that a paper for another class might.
Okay. Does like the critical like thought process, does it differ from like tactical intel compared to more strategic intel?
I think so. Tactical intelligence, you're looking more at raw data points that are often pretty straightforward and that might expire very quickly in terms of their utility. When you're looking at strategic intel, that's more cerebral. You're thinking more in the theoretical realm. The thinking can be more creative. A strategic intel might be, hey, if I were Russian, what would be my grand strategy, for weakening the United States? And we have some intel that they are pursuing a grand strategy to weaken us, but you could also, that's the kind of thing, try to think big picture. You can think about tactics too, tactically, how would somebody go about something? But strategic intelligence tends to be more cerebral, more draw more upon the humanities, more upon things like culture, history, whereas tactics might be a little bit more discreetly scientific. These are hard questions to answer.
It's very broad. Like you can't just dial in on it, especially in this field. You would say like it's just there's so much going on and it's always changing that it's just.
Yeah, and even the word tactics, a lot of things might fall into that. I mean, you could think creatively about the tactics that terrorists would employ to get us next. Now that we've secured airports and whatnot, so it's not like tactical intelligence thinking is not creative, but I would say that other subjects in the social sciences and humanities, like philosophy and history and anthropology, that stuff would come in more in handy when you're doing strategic intel. Whereas things like the military sciences, if you were to go to a war college and learn different battlefield doctrines, that would be more in the realm of the tactical.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer.
Oh, that's it? Okay. Yeah, you're welcome.